Chris Hemsworth arrived in a remote Australian town seeking a break from the Hollywood spotlight. Nestled between rolling hills and vast eucalyptus forests, the town seemed like the perfect getaway. Chris, dressed casually in a t-shirt and shorts, roamed the dusty streets, blending in effortlessly with the locals. The town was small, with just a handful of shops, a pub, and a post office. Chris enjoyed the simplicity, the warm greetings from the townsfolk, and the serenity of being surrounded by nature. It was a stark contrast to the high-energy life he was accustomed to. But as he walked toward a scenic overlook, a faint smell of smoke caught his attention. At first, he dismissed it as a routine burn-off, common in rural areas. Yet, as he reached the hilltop, his heart sank. In the distance, a thick plume of smoke rose into the sky, its ominous shape twisting against the golden sunset. The peaceful escape he had envisioned was about to take a dramatic turn. Chris rushed back to the town square, his heart pounding. The faint smell of smoke had turned into an acrid stench, and the sky now bore a faint orange hue. As he reached the main street, he found the townsfolk gathering, murmuring anxiously. A local firefighter, clad in dusty gear, was addressing the crowd. "The fire's moving fast," the firefighter warned. "It's already crossed the ridge and could reach us by nightfall. We need all hands to prepare. Evacuation, fire breaks, everything." The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. Chris stepped forward, his towering presence catching the attention of the crowd. "What can I do to help?" he asked simply. His voice was calm but firm, instantly commanding respect. The firefighter paused, recognizing him but saying nothing about his fame. "We'll need manpower to set up a fire break at the eastern edge of town," he replied. Without hesitation, Chris nodded. The townsfolk, inspired by his willingness, began to mobilize, their initial fear giving way to a determined energy. Chris knew this was no movie set. This was real, and the stakes couldn't be higher. With time running out, Chris joined a group heading toward the eastern edge of town. The fire break zone was a barren stretch of land where the locals had begun clearing vegetation to create a barrier. The heat from the approaching fire was already palpable, and ash drifted through the air like ghostly snowflakes. Chris worked tirelessly alongside the townsfolk, using shovels, rakes, and anything else available to clear the land. Sweat poured down his face as the air grew thicker with smoke. Despite the grueling conditions, his presence brought an undeniable morale boost. "You've got this, mate!" he shouted to a young man struggling with a fallen tree branch. His words were simple but carried weight, inspiring those around him to push harder. As night fell, the glow of the fire on the horizon grew brighter. The fire break was almost complete, but the sense of urgency remained. Chris glanced toward the town, now eerily quiet, knowing that the safety of hundreds depended on their efforts. He gripped his shovel tighter and got back to work. By midnight, the fire was upon them. The wind howled, carrying embers that danced in the air like fiery insects. The fire break was holding for now, but the flames loomed dangerously close, their roar like a beast threatening to devour everything in its path. Chris stood shoulder to shoulder with the locals, spraying down the fire break with hoses and buckets of water. The heat was unbearable, the smoke stinging their eyes and throats. Yet no one wavered. At one point, a gust of wind sent a wave of embers over the fire break, igniting a patch of dry grass dangerously close to the town. Without hesitation, Chris grabbed a nearby fire extinguisher and ran toward the flames. The townsfolk watched in awe as he doused the fire, his determination shining through the chaos. "Keep it up!" he yelled, his voice cutting through the roar of the blaze. His actions weren't just about putting out fires. They were about inspiring hope in a moment when it seemed all might be lost. Hours passed and the fire's intensity began to waver. The fire break had held, but the fight was far from over. Chris stood at the edge of the town, watching as the flames slowed, their fury giving way to smoldering embers. Relief was palpable, but exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. As the sun began to rise, Chris noticed a young boy clutching a small, singed teddy bear near the town square. The boy's wide, tearful eyes mirrored the fear and uncertainty that lingered even as the immediate danger subsided. Chris knelt beside him, his voice soft yet reassuring. You were so brave last night. Your family must be proud of you, he said. The boy nodded, managing a small smile. That brief moment, though simple, reminded everyone why they had fought so hard to protect the people and the memories that made this town home. Chris turned back to the townsfolk, his voice steady. We're not done yet, he said. Let's make sure everyone is safe and rebuild what we've saved. Over the next few days, the town came together like never before. Chris stayed, working alongside the locals to clean up debris, repair homes, and provide supplies to those who had lost everything. His fame never became the focus. Instead, he was just another pair of hands, lifting, hauling, and encouraging. At one point, a woman approached him with tears in her eyes. I've seen you on the big screen, she said, but I'll remember you for this. Chris smiled humbly, shaking his head. It's not about me, he replied. It's about what we can do together. The fire had scarred the land, but it had also united the community in a way they hadn't experienced before. Chris's quiet leadership had turned fear into resilience, showing that even in the face of devastation, hope could prevail. As the town slowly returned to normal, word of Chris's efforts began to spread. News outlets picked up the story, highlighting his selfless actions during the fire. But within the town, Chris wasn't seen as a celebrity. He was seen as one of their own, someone who had stood by them when it mattered most. A small ceremony was held in the town square, where the mayor presented Chris with a plaque of gratitude. For your courage, kindness, and unwavering support, the mayor said, his voice thick with emotion. Chris accepted the plaque with humility, his words brief but heartfelt. This isn't mine alone, he said. It belongs to all of you. What we did together. The applause that followed was genuine and filled with gratitude. Chris looked out at the crowd, seeing not just faces but stories, people who had lost so much but found strength in each other. It was a moment he would carry with him forever. A few weeks later, Chris returned to the town on his way back from a filming location. The once scorched hills were beginning to show signs of life, with small green shoots peeking through the blackened earth. He stopped by the local cafe, where the owner greeted him with a warm smile and a cup of coffee. Sitting by the window, Chris watched as children played in the square and families worked together to rebuild their lives. He thought back to the fire, the fear, and the courage that had emerged in its wake. It wasn't the kind of heroism captured on film. It was real, raw, and deeply human. Chris sipped his coffee, a quiet satisfaction settling over him. He hadn't just visited this town. He had become a part of its story. And so, what began as a quiet retreat turned into an unforgettable chapter of courage and unity. Chris Hemsworth's actions reminded us that true heroism doesn't come with a script. It comes from the heart. Thank you for watching this inspiring story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of Hollywood's brightest stars and their unexpected acts of kindness. See you in the next video.